Trade-wise, how do you think that the 49ers trading for Steve Young trading for Steve Young? Did you know he's coming to save the day?
Hey,
That's
they did at
actually
one point. They traded for him. It was just a little while ago.
Trading for Chase Young. How do you think that move stacks up against other moves made around the NFL? The Seahawks got Leonard
Williams.
Williams and
Yeah, and they
Frank
signed
Clark.
Frank Clark.
Yeah. And then the Eagles got safety Kevin Byard, which is good because that fills a need for them at safety. I had heard that they were in the mix. I wonder if you would know about this or if it was just a rumor on Twitter that they were in the mix for now I'm blanking. Cardinals player. Really good.
Budemaker?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they didn't get him.
Yeah, so Philadelphia had a couple of needs. Cornerback was one. Edge rushing help was the other. Safety was really the biggest one. They addressed that with Kevin Byard. Howie Roseman's a really aggressive general manager, so he's always going to check in on players across the league to try to improve that roster. Why I like what San Francisco did on top of what we talked about earlier is they saw Philadelphia, the best team in the NFC right now, address their biggest weakness, and they traded a 5th and a 6th, as well as Terrell Edmonds, who's not good, for Kevin Byard, who's a former 2-time first-team All-Pro. Mm-hmm. So they saw what Philadelphia did. And then they saw earlier this week what the Seahawks did. They traded for Leonard Williams, and they addressed a weakness there because their defensive line has been a problem. And then 2 weeks ago, they signed Frank Clark. So San Francisco here, I like what they did because they understand who they're competing against. They're competing in the NFC against Philadelphia. They're competing in this division against the Seahawks, which could come down to those 2 games in 3 weeks with a huge one coming up on Thanksgiving in a few. And they tried to counter what those other teams did. So that's why I like the approach of San Francisco here, because when your competitor does something, if, Apple's been running the iPhone game for a really long time, right? Like, they see Samsung and Android come out with a better camera and better technology. iPhone's going to counter, right? Because that's their direct competitor. That's what San Francisco was able to do. I love what Philadelphia did with Byard because he's a really good player. He's lost a little bit of a step. He's 30 years old. He's been in the league for a little while, but instinctually, he can make up for some of that lost athleticism, and it just comes down to him being on that defense with a bunch of other really good players. I like what Seattle was able to do because they address weaknesses. And that's one thing as a Niner fan that people have to appreciate, is that this ownership group, the front office, the coaching staff, they are all in every year here because they understand they have to take advantage of this opportunity, and they're doing everything that they can to try to get that 6th Lombardi trophy.
They definitely are, and they're definitely I loved that was part of it last year with the Christian McCaffrey trade too, right? Why they were so aggressive is because they knew that the Rams were also all in. Because it's not just about making your team better; it's about comparing your team to other teams within your division, especially when you're so close, with a Philadelphia like that is. When it's kind of like I feel like Dallas should be more like this with the 49ers. Like and I think the Seahawks kind of did this. They've almost built their team in a way that addresses the 49ers' strengths to try to exploit them. And it's kind of cool when you see regimes that have been with teams for a while because they start to kind of build their own teams to compete within their own division a little bit better, which I think is really nice. If you were to give the 49ers trade like a letter grade for Chase Young, A, B, C, D, F, what would you give it? And what about the Seahawks and the Eagles?
The moves that they've made going into the deadline, or
yeah, just before the trade deadline.
I mean, no team really brought in like a superstar. Chase Young has the potential to be that. He's shown flashes. I'd give the Eagles like a B. I'd give the Seahawks a B and the Niners a B. Like, I think it all kind of intertwines as
helps, but isn't like a superstar.
Exactly. It's not a Christian McCaffrey trade, which was an A.
Yeah.
It's not a Von Miller trade that the Rams did that Super Bowl year, which was an A. So I'd go solid B because, Byard, Leonard Williams, Chase Young, I'd say they're all about B-level players. So I'll go B trade for those teams.
I like that. I think if the 49ers could have brought in like Jalen Johnson or something, either as well or on its own, I would have
graded that an A.
An A.
Yeah.
But I think the Jalen Johnson came down to I think he wanted to be paid like a top 5 cornerback or something. See, no one ended up trading for him. So
Nobody ended up trading for him. He requested a trade, and now if Chicago loses him for nothing, that'll kind of bite them in the ass a little bit.